My ex-potential boyfriend discarded me after our first night together, then tried to redate me while stringing me along with "I love you" and "I might be immature." Now he's dating someone new and I'm stuck healing from his emotional games. How do I move on? Note ages as of today, English is not my first language. TLDR, I went through what I think was an avoidant discard or breakup, and it has been extremely difficult to navigate this situation. I feel it is taking me a lot of time, and I would appreciate advice, feedback, or recommendations on how to manage the situation. Any tips on how to let go and move on in a healthy manner? So the full story and the background. In 2023, I, 30 years old, female at that time, began a postgraduate program and made some changes in my life, including dating. I decided to open Tinder to meet people, go on dates, and adopt a mentality of being not attached to the outcome. There, I met this guy, 36 years old, male at the time, who asked me out on a date, and I agreed. We matched in November 2023 and had our first date in December. It was a dinner date and it went okay. He did not make any advances, paid the bill, and was courteous. Honestly, I thought he was somewhat boring and did not feel a significant spark, but in the spirit of maintaining a healthy mindset, it did not feel wrong either. I also wasn't particularly fond of the fact that he was bald, but despite being not attached, I was pursuing genuine connections and trying to meet people on a deeper level. So we kept chatting and communicating almost daily with memes, videos, reels, and other content. We had a lot in common. Fast forward to 2024, he asked me out again in January, a month later, for something simple: lunch and conversation. He did not make any advances on me either, which I considered respectful and made me feel more comfortable around him. We were still in regular communication during the previous month, and we had a great conversation that went very deep, discussing mindset, family history, and even views on society and controversial topics where we discovered we were quite compatible. The date felt great, and even though I still felt no huge spark, I began to genuinely like him and started to open up more and feel the mood change. We continued chatting and talking almost daily, through messages, calls, and video calls, and I became more confident as I am an introvert and began making more jokes. However, suddenly the conversations became more sexual. Before diving into that, I expressed my nerves and uncertainty about taking things in that direction because I liked him. He mentioned he liked me too, which made me agree to explore that tone as it was mixed with our regular conversations, and he seemed consistent, discussing more than just sex, which made me feel secure and not used. Just to clarify, we were exchanging spicy texts and pictures, but we had not kissed on previous dates or anything physical beforehand. Then came our third date. We met in mid-February again, a month after our previous date and about 2 weeks after our more suggestive chats. And while the date started calmly as we had lunch, it ended up at a hotel where we had sex. I know the timing was strange, but it got worse when I received the news of a family emergency. My grandmother fell down the stairs while I was with him, so I had to leave in a hurry. Of course, this did not sit well with him. I called the next day to apologize and explain, and while he initially accepted the apology, he began to act oddly understandable, I thought, but did not break off communication. We continued talking in the following days as usual, and he mentioned he was going on a trip with friends. I said my goodbyes. When he returned, keep in mind this was 10 days after we had been intimate, he called me, yes, over the phone to inform me that he did not want to continue seeing me and that he was officially starting to date another girl with whom he claimed to have more chemistry. He also expressed that he wanted us to remain friends. I was in shock, and even though I understood the underlying reasons behind his decision, doing it over the phone felt rude, cowardly, and horrible. I do not have a high body count, nor do I engage in one-night stands, so I was blindsided. It hurt a lot, and yes, I was aware he was talking to someone else but had made sure it was not at a similar stage before becoming intimate. So there I was, surprised and in pain. I had to move past it, and eventually I did. Of course, we began talking less frequently, with him mostly sharing memes from time to time while I became less responsive. Then in May, 2 months later, he reappeared, attempting to initiate conversation again. I inquired about what was going on, to which he replied that he had made a mistake, regretted his decision, and was wondering if we could try again. I responded with, "Are you aware that you basically dumped me over the phone 10 days after we became intimate?" He expressed remorse. So I allowed him a chance to try and see how things would develop. During this time, however, he made comments that made me very uncomfortable, which I always communicated to him. He aimed them as compliments, but they just did not sit right with me. For example, he compared my lingerie to that of the other girl, saying mine was prettier and that I looked better. I had to address that once or twice until the comments stopped, and it seemed he was being considerate. He started to regain momentum and the frequency of our conversations since May. However, now in August, when I mentioned that we were merely friends, he became very bothered. I said we were just cool friends, but he insisted that our relationship was not solely physical and that he wanted romance with me. We had not had sex since then, although some remarks concerning it appeared in our conversations. I let him know that he could pursue that if he wished, and the door was open. He began to show more interest, asking me out on dates again, resuming daily contact and conversations, so I gradually leaned in again. At the end of August was his birthday, he turned 37, and he invited me to his apartment where we had sex again. This time he did not disappear and displayed more intention. He continued chatting daily, inviting me on dates and requesting to hang out, and everything felt wonderful. He even claimed that I had everything he desired in a relationship. We had cooking dates, and as he was moving, I offered to help, accompanying him to pick out furniture and other items. He sought my opinion. My involvement was not very active or intrusive, but he would show me the sofa he wanted and ask for my input, which I gladly provided. By October, the security guards in his apartment building already knew me, and we spent a lot of time together. Additionally, my postgraduate classes were nearing completion. He suggested that we take a trip together. He expressed his desire for us to go to the beach, and I was certain he was going to ask me to be his girlfriend officially since we were already acting like a couple. Therefore, I agreed. The trip took place in the first week of November, and while it was not entirely bad, neither was it fantastic. Notably, November marked 1 year since we had met. He did think about asking me to be his girlfriend, but he ultimately didn't. He stated he was unsure. During the trip, I did not feel a strong connection nor were we fighting, but we felt distant. I genuinely believe one of the things we needed to discuss in depth before making the relationship official was the situation in which I had been friend-zoned and how it transpired. I swear I had already forgiven him, but that was one of the reasons he cited for his uncertainty. He was actually upset and uncomfortable over my continued dating, while friend-zoned and felt insecure about a specific man he had seen me with, even though I was no longer spending time with that person. During one of our discussions on the trip, he mentioned that he had turned down opportunities with other women because he was with me. I also was not actively dating or hanging out with other men. Additionally, his family was on a trip to the same place where we were going and I met his mother. During this trip, we both expressed our feelings by saying, "I love you," so I can highlight that significant moment. During this time, he decided to pursue his before 40 plan, which included traveling and studying, along with some financial decisions. He appeared stressed and hesitant regarding those matters. Ultimately, we returned from the trip in the same situation, not a couple but almost. After our return, things felt odd again, but I was aware of my feelings. I like this man, I have feelings for him, love, and I wanted to be with him. Therefore, I resolved to stick with it. However, I did not want the relationship to continue operating solely on his terms, so I made a proposal. Since we were already not seeing anyone else, how about we date exclusively with greater intention? Not to make the relationship official just yet, but to meet face-to-face more regularly, spend time together, and engage in those potentially uncomfortable conversations. Previously, although we were in regular contact, we mostly communicated through video calls and phone conversations, meeting in person every 2 to 3 weeks. So I suggested we meet once a week to do something together. He agreed, and we started to follow that plan. Now, despite my classes ending in October, the graduation ceremony was scheduled for December. It was a significant day for me. I was thrilled and satisfied, feeling accomplished. My graduation occurred on December 10, and that day I received nothing more than a rather generic text from him in the morning. I called him at the end of the day, mentioning I sensed something was off. I had felt it for a while, but I didn't address it during our last in-person meeting on December 5. That day, even though I indicated something felt wrong, he deflected, attributing it to his goals, work, and stress. Look at this, I called the next morning, December 11, to apologize. I felt my comment the day before was poorly articulated and expressed. However, he replied, "No, you're right, I don't think I want to pursue this anymore." I cannot convey how shocking that was. But I responded, "Not this time, you cannot do this to me over the phone again, let's meet and discuss what is truly going on." He agreed and we met that night. During our meeting, he brought up a multitude of statements that contradicted each other. "I don't want to lose you, I love you, you possess everything I desire in a relationship, you look beautiful and being in front of you makes me not want to leave. Your small gestures with me are amazing and leave me in awe, along with I'm not sure, I might be afraid of commitment, I'm not comfortable with us meeting once a week. Maybe I fell for you because I'm too lonely, I want to focus on my goals, perhaps I'm too egotistical, I might be immature. And I don't want to get sick again." He suffers from irritable bowel syndrome. I just sat there in complete confusion. It was late and we decided to take a break. I was crying heavily and he wasn't having a great time either, and continue the conversation later. We met again a few days later on December 14, and things had taken a turn for the worse, I came to realize later. He asked me to give him time, saying he felt overwhelmed and wanted to ensure he wasn't making an emotional decision without thought. He requested time until February and I agreed, but under certain conditions, with the most important being honesty. We needed to engage in the tough and uncomfortable conversations, and we would not date or entertain anyone else during that period. He agreed, but I must highlight new topics that arose in that conversation. Once again, I'm afraid of commitment. I'm pessimistic because of my relationship with my mother and how I was raised, along with justifications like you're gaining weight. After finishing my classes, I had not been regularly going to the gym. The challenges of my classes were overwhelming and stressful. Your family has health issues and a history of obesity, your friends. I don't like them even though he hadn't met any of them. You have unrealistic expectations. I don't want to hurt you. I can't do this to you. I can't waste your time. I might be emotionally unavailable, and the icing on the cake, it was easier and I was more certain about asking the other girl, the one he friend-zoned me for, to be my girlfriend. Despite it ending in failure with her, I felt more certain about her and had better chemistry. Let us not forget that he had to go on a trip with friends back in February to decide which woman he should be with. And he confessed that the fact I had to rush out of our third date, the one where we had sex, was the pivotal reason he did not choose me then. Okay, that was my fault. It was a bad decision on my part to agree to give him the time he asked for. You might be surprised, but I had a terrible holiday season and Christmas. He promised to text on both Christmas and New Year, and he did, as I was trying to prepare so that when we returned we could mend things and work towards a healthy relationship. During this time, I learned about attachment styles and was compiling notes on what seemed to be significant issues so that we could address them and how to have successful conversations with avoidant individuals. Everything indicated that he was a fearful avoidant. For example, his family history. His father left when he was young to be with another woman, and while he fulfilled some financial responsibilities, he was not genuinely present. His mother was cold and unaffectionate. His comments and attitudes towards me reflect fear of commitment, and so on. He once mentioned something like, "Look at me, a 37-year-old man without a relationship. I don't want to resemble my father." Since I was not in a good place, I reached out to him on January 13 of this year and expressed that I believed it was time to reconnect and have the crucial conversations we had postponed, stating I was not willing to wait until February. He replied that he had already made a decision. Yet again, I insisted, no, come on, we agreed to this time to sort things out, not to make one-sided decisions. Nevertheless, it was my fault and there was nothing I could do. He shared that he was afraid of hurting me and cited his favorite reason for choosing a partner: I don't feel chemistry anymore. He even suggested remaining friends. I had to refuse that proposition. I told him that at least for the immediate future it would not be feasible, it would not benefit either of us. He appeared completely numbed, as if disconnected from any emotions. However, I had to accept it, so I viewed it as a breakup and have been ruminating on it. Recently, I discovered that by March 9 he was already dating another woman and attended a friend's baby shower with her. This is the same man who, less than 2 months prior, told me he was emotionally unavailable. I know, you never know what happens behind closed doors, yet it simply does not add up for me. Even though I expressed this without malice, it's interesting. He indicated that his attraction for me was fading because I was gaining weight, while the new girl he is with is also overweight. She is attractive, please do not misunderstand me, but she is not thin. Since January following the official breakup, I have embarked on a significant healing journey. I have gained a lot of insight into how attachment styles operate, and before anyone attempts to label me as anxiously attached, my therapist explained that even individuals with a secure attachment, which I had, can exhibit anxious tendencies in a relationship with someone who is avoidant. My therapist has been immensely helpful through each phase of my recovery. In a similar vein to how I was able to identify his attachment style, she guided me to compare our profiles. This might be amusing. I utilized ChatGPT to conduct a comparison of our profiles in various domains. Differences in professional paths, education, family, style, etc. Even though I endeavored to keep it neutral and entirely truthful, ChatGPT ultimately conveyed that I was selling myself short and suggested he was not the right man for me. Despite my awareness of all this and accepting responsibility for my decisions, I still do not feel okay. Even though I assure you that there is no way I will return to him to endure more pain or to forgive another set of hurtful actions he inflicted upon me, a part of me continues to wait, waiting for him to reach out to acknowledge what he has done. And it hurts. I feel sad and I am frustrated with myself. So how do I let go and move on? Story 2. Caught in a friendship tangled by childhood trauma, I 20F wrestle with my avoidant style while my BFF's anxious nature amplifies misunderstandings. Do you hate me? She asks while I feel suffocated. Can I address this without losing her for good? I am seeking some friendship advice regarding an issue that my best friend and I have been facing throughout our friendship, from childhood into adulthood. The problem lies in our attachment styles. At times, I feel suffocated by hers, and I must admit I feel guilty about it. I get the impression that she does not trust me as much as she claims to. I'm in need of guidance on how to handle this situation appropriately rather than avoiding it. For some context, I have an avoidant attachment style, but am actively working to improve it. She has an anxious attachment style, and I am unsure if she is making progress with it. We both developed these attachment styles due to the childhood trauma we experienced, and we are aware of each other's backgrounds. We used to live in the same area, but I moved away after my parents' separation. We often have disagreements about this, and it has placed a considerable strain on our relationship, even when we attempt to act as though everything is fine. There will be several weeks where our relationship appears stable with good communication. However, turmoil arises whenever I miss a few texts or phone calls. Admittedly, it is exhausting, and I feel a growing resentment within me. I feel like a terrible person for harboring such feelings, but her energy frequently diminishes my own, and I am fatigued by it. The years 2023 to 2025 have been particularly challenging for both of us, primarily due to our disagreements and the difficulties we face individually. We both have unstable family dynamics as well, which amplifies our issues. The year 2024 was especially tough as we nearly experienced two significant falling outs. Hurtful comments were exchanged from both sides, but more so from her. I still think about what she said during those times. Although we moved past both incidents, the emotions from those situations still linger. When we engage in particularly heated arguments, she quickly suggests ending the friendship instead of working through our issues. She also compares me to friends who have left or simply moved on, which is painful. I have addressed this with her. I have my own faults contributing to the main source of our arguments, primarily my avoidant tendencies. I tend to avoid responding to texts or calls immediately when I am busy or need time to recharge. I become exhausted by social interactions after a certain period, requiring solitude to regain my energy. Being an introverted person, this is simply how I am, and I cannot change it. Additionally, I should mention that I often take long naps due to depression and a chronic illness I have. As a child, I was frequently silenced during arguments and forced to endure the brunt of my parents' yelling and physical punishment. During such times, I would fall silent and dissociate from the situation. This traumatic response has not translated well into my adulthood. In arguments, I often retreat into silence, leaving text unanswered, as I fear my emotions will overwhelm me and lead to regretful statements. Yelling or crying does not work well with my triggers either. It tends to push me back to my childhood experiences, making me feel the same way I did as a child. I understand this may be tiring for others, but I am trying my best to work through it. No, I have not been formally diagnosed with any mental illnesses aside from severe depression and anxiety, although a college counselor has suggested PTSD. As for her, she has developed an anxious attachment style as a result of having to manage her parents' emotions, experiencing the loss of family members, and dealing with past friendships that have left her with abandonment issues. This has made her quite anxious and sensitive to various matters. A close family member has died within the last 2 years, which has affected her deeply. Her parents are not in good health and exhibit reckless behavior. They drink, smoke, and overexert themselves. Yes, they belong to an older generation. She constantly fears that they might die one day or come to hate her. She frequently asks those in her life questions like, "Do you hate me? Am I a bad person? And do you still love or like me?" For me, though, it feels more like, "Am I still your best friend? Do you prefer your other friends over me? Or am I a bad friend? I feel like I am a bad friend." She requires constant reassurance, which I provide, but frankly, it is exhausting. She does little more than use marijuana to cope with her anxiety and depression, which has severely affected her memory, health, and other areas. It is painful to witness, but I must mention that she has started cutting down on it due to various factors. I would greatly appreciate any advice on how to approach this situation. How do I address this matter appropriately? She tends to take everything very personally, so I am constantly walking on eggshells around her. I do not want to lose the friendship, but I fear there will be a major fallout if things do not change soon. She is likely the last person I have from my hometown since moving away. I care for her deeply, but there are times when she does not seem to recognize that. In summary, I am seeking insight on how to manage differing attachment styles in a friendship. I lean more toward the avoidant side, while my best friend tends toward anxious attachment. Sometimes, it becomes challenging when I need space and she feels insecure. We both share a history of childhood trauma that has contributed to our current situation, and I am doing my best to overcome it. However, recently, minor misunderstandings regarding missed texts or calls have escalated into significant conflicts. I completely understand her sensitivity, given that her past is filled with losses and tumultuous relationships, but it is draining for me. I do not wish to hurt her feelings, but I also need to address this for my own well-being. Any advice on how to navigate this situation gently would be appreciated.